So the first is to say, skin in the game, maximum skin in the game. Well, there's two characteristics when you're engaging in war. One characteristic is it's for all the marbles, right? So it's extremely serious. It's I think maybe a thing to put forward is that we've been raised in a really, really remarkably lazy and cowardly context. We're by far the laziest and most cowardly human beings that have ever been developed. We face no duress. Even our crises would be considered a good day for almost anybody who's ever lived. And the point I want to bring forward is this, which is, but that's not how life works. Life is, in fact, actually for all the marbles, and not just particular moments in life. We tend to live life in a situation where we take the foot off the gas for most of the time, and then something important happens, and we try to focus, right? We try to kind of raise to the occasion. But the notion of war is that when you are at war, everything starts to line up. Everything becomes very strictly organized in a very straightforward telos. And part of course, is the pressure of the adversary. If you do not have an adversary who is very, very committed, fully committed to your complete defeat, then you're not at war. You may be, there's a variety of different things that might be happening, but that's not what's happening. A hurricane is not war.
Yes.
And of course, the point is that this combination creates a tremendous degree of tautness. You get pulled very tight. You begin to notice that every single thing has to be taken as if it matters, because your margin of error gets smaller and smaller as your adversary becomes more and more capable of defeating you, and the consequences of defeat are more and more profound. And that's the thing, right? And so the end of war, like the last step, is ultimately either you are victorious or you are dead. And I mean, the word dead here can extend to cover a large scope of things, right? The key thing is that you have been defeated, and you are now subject to the hierarchy and the value structures of some other will. That's the key idea. And so some part of you is dead. Something that you care about is dead. Otherwise, there would never been a war in the first place. You would have just, changed your behavior. Okay, so that's what that frame ultimately grounds in. And I guess one thing I want to put up there is there's a lot of things that may be assumed to be imported by that frame, but most of them are, in fact, coming from a lack of awareness of how war works. So, for example, in the contemporary environment, if what was that guy's name? Ciariglione, the Italian kid who shot the healthcare executive?
Yeah, I can't remember his Italian last name, but yes.
Yeah. You're not fighting war, right? You may use a logic of we're at war and therefore this is justified, but the point is you're being very, very, and I want to be I want to use the kind of morality at the level of war, which is you're going to lose that war. That is a stupid way to fight war. It is a way to fight war stupidly. And stupid in the context of war is also immoral because it just means that you'll lose. And therefore everything you value has been sacrificed on the basis of your own stupidity. So what does it mean to fight war wisely? And I'll use wise even more, wise includes within it something like effectively. So this is then when I started importing that notion of the 5th generation warfare frame. And then we'll blend over to spiritual war, because one of the things that happens is as we have moved forward in the art of war, we have more and more spiritualized the way that we go about waging war by necessity. So, and in fact, I wrote an essay about this. It was called The War on Sense Making. At the moment at the end of World War II, with the kind of mushroom clouds coming up in Japan, we had reached a point where kinetic war had been both maximized and had in some sense come to an end, meaning we'd reached the edge of what could be done by virtue of just blowing the other guy up, because now we have mutually assured destruction. And if you try to blow the other guy up, he can blow you up and nobody can win that war. Okay. So what that required, though, is kind of like a pressure cooker, meaning we're still going to be waging war. And this is important to keep in mind. There's no other way around it. Well, how do we do that? So we had to become more subtle. So the Cold War is this war of spies and propaganda. And what it does is it almost like, think about it as this is the way it's always been, but it forces it to become more refined. It squeezes the front, the location where conflict occurs, into every possible location.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese have, in fact, formalized this with what they call systems war, which is just to say what I just said. So the technique of systems war is you probe in what might even appear to be arbitrary locations. Let's try cyber war here. Let's try influencing filmmaking there. Let's try embedding backdoors in television and laundry machine chips, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And just watch and see where you're able to get more advantage. Right? So think of this as a very fluid, modular thing that doesn't have any particular preconceived notion of where and how war is waged, but rather is able to deploy continuously. But ultimately, yes, recognizing that there's a sense of who is on each side.
Mm-hmm.
But as you accelerate through the 5th generation warfare, even that begins to break down because, of course, when you're engaging in maximum psyops, part of psyops is obfuscation of identity. And who exactly, plausible deniability, and even engaging in actions where the causation becomes diffuse. Have you heard of something, what is it called? I heard about it from Bruce Sterling a long time ago. I think it has a technical term now, but the notion would be something like, let's say I want somebody dead.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is I produce a propaganda field that would have the statistical likelihood of provoking some random schizophrenic to decide that that's the guy he needs to take out to get his craziness to go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no connection, no causal linear connection between me and the actual event. And yet there is a connection between me and the actual event.
Yeah.
That's, but what you begin to see is you begin to see causation becomes diffuse, identity becomes diffuse. This is why I said the centerpiece as you move through the arc of 5th generation warfare, it actually becomes isomorphic with what we would have called spiritual warfare in a very beautiful way, a very powerful and confusing way. Who are you? What are your values? Like if the end of the day, if to defeat you in war is to basically say, I now subordinate your values to my values, if I can get you to become confused about what your values are and to lose track of what you value or even what it means to value anything, then that's a perfectly great way to do it. And maybe actually much more effective than trying to blow you up. Because if I charge at you with a machine gun, I may harden your values. I may harden your commitment. And if I fail to really thoroughly kill you, in some time you'll come back and you may be subtle about it. Think Rome and Greece. Right? Rome ostensibly conquered Greece, but in many ways, Greece conquered Rome through the another door. So, and this is, I think, the point here is I think this is where we are. Right? So we're in this really interesting circumstance that, and diagnostically, we are at war, and perhaps it's proper to say that we have always been at war. This is back to the Paul reference, and we'll connect back up to spiritual war. But the materiality of that war has become more and more palpable. And so, okay, so now let's shift to Roman numeral 2, spiritual war.